Thanks, Gerlach, and thanks to all our witnesses today. And I know this is a very complex issue, and we're living in kind of unprecedented times. Just in relation to this opening statement for certificates for persons not vaccinated in Ireland. So, for example, just this kind of example, if somebody from Britain is coming to Ireland, as of now, how can they access, say, indoor hospitality as of next Monday if they've been vaccinated in Britain? But how actually could that person get a DCC in order to access indoor hospitality? So that's just the first question.
So first of all, just to say, Deputy, in terms of the hospitality and the regulations and rules that will apply to that, they are currently in development and they're not the work of this particular group. So just in terms of the standard that will be required there. But I guess it is fair to say that as it stands, we have been recognising the NHS certification. So you don't need an Irish cert in order for it to be recognised. It simply needs to meet a certain standard, and that will be set out in regulations. And for the purposes of travel, that standard is set out in regulations.
Okay. And just in relation to third country passengers, and obviously in this statement said that's ongoing. So, for example, an Irish passport holder that's, say, living in the United States, Canada, certain parts of the Middle East or anywhere, if they come to Ireland, what, like, time-wise, what are you be looking at in relation to equivalency? That was decision that was given to Switzerland on the 9th of July. What would, in time-wise, obviously that some of this could be out of your remit, but in relation to Irish citizens living elsewhere in third kind of country situations, what are we looking at time-wise?
So just to say, I mean, it is helpful if the EU take a view on interoperability, but of course it is open to us in terms of the standard we set as to what we determine we would consider to be robust and verifiable proof. So it will be possible for people to meet a standard without the EU absolutely declaring that they are entirely interoperable. So our travel regulations allow that we can accept certs once we're satisfied they're verifiable and robust. And of a standard equivalent to what we're getting in the context of the European DCC system. So we have the capacity to do that without waiting on the EU, but obviously if there's interoperability, it makes it even more, gives us even more confidence, yeah.
And if they're not EMA approved, because there's a cohort of Irish citizens living in UAE at the moment that have got vaccinated, but it's not EMA approved. In the situations, in a situation like that, what happens to people that have been vaccinated by I think it's a vaccine called Sinopharm? In situations like that, what happens to citizens that come back to the country if they're in a situation like that?
So I'm going to hand over to Murish in relation to the standard in relation to EMA. So go ahead, Murish.
Just in short, Deputy, the EU DCC applies only to the suite of vaccines approved by the European Medicines Agency. So vaccines not on that list wouldn't count towards vaccination in the EU DCC at the moment. On the issue of third country equivalence, as you know, Switzerland has an EU level equivalence. There are 40 other countries in conversation with the EU at the moment who have submitted applications for equivalence decisions. So I expect that there'll be quite a bit of development on that. And as Liz says, it's best that it's done at EU level, but we do have discretion ourselves to recognise appropriate certs. Thanks.
Is Britain one of them 40 countries?
Yes. Yeah, okay. Britain, US, Canada, loads others.
Okay, and just a very, very final question, just in relation to, I know Senator Clifford Lee said this, in regards to those that have been vaccinated in relation to their name on their vaccination cert, that's different to their passport. So somebody will then have to ring the hotline. What's the process of, and what time frame are we looking at if to get that changed from the time of the call to the time the cert is reevaluated and sent out to via email or post? What time are we thinking? Because obviously there's huge demand in relation to phone calls and all that, and we understand that, but time frame, what are we talking about?
So what our view is, if a call is processed and it's not complex, we would hope, even if it has to go right back through the system, we would be able to reissue within 5 days. But if it's, it may be a little bit faster if it's more straightforward. But we're aiming for 5 days. Barry, is that fair?
Yes, Liz, thanks for your question, Deputy. The target we're working to is 5 working days, but as Liz said, there may be instances, a lot of them, where we can issue them faster. Preferably if, when the person's inquiring, they can give us an email address, because obviously that cuts out the need for post.
Right. So it could be as easy as changing from John to Sean for something like that. Would it be just say very, very simple change with it?
Just to say, Deputy, I think obviously there are more simple changes. Say your email address has changed, but if there's a fundamental change, then further investigation has to be carried out to make sure that someone else's health record isn't compromised. That's why Liz said some of them can be a little bit more complex, but in the vast majority of changes, if it's just an email change or a change of address has happened, then they should be pretty straightforward to fix and get the replacement certificate out quickly.
And maybe just to add to that, Deputy, obviously we have to be satisfied that we can verify that the change is a valid one and that the person that's calling is the person. So we would have to make assure ourselves in respect of some of those matters where there's an identity change, shall we say?
Yeah.
Just to be careful.
And how worried would you be about kind of fraud? How worried would you be about situations where people's identity could be compromised in relation to something like this? Because obviously it could be done, like everything, nothing is bulletproof, but how worried are you in relation to fraudulent certs, being people being compromised in their identity?
We're always extremely worried about attempts at fraud in all matters of digital transactions with government, Deputy, which is why one of the things that we have under development is a self-help portal. But one of the things we need to do is make sure that that is not an easy target for either fraud or actually third-party attack, because as you know, health systems are often seen to be easy targets for third-party attack. So part of the time required to build this has been building adequate security around the whole process, whether that's an individual making a contact by phone or an individual making a contact online.
Thanks very